breaking news.
And that breaking news right now at noon, 3 men are on the run after escaping from the Dekalb County Jail earlier this morning. Thanks for being with us.
First, let's start by saying that we operate a 30-plus-year-old facility. And as with the building of such, some of the infrastructure can be compromised with effort by the inmates.
Early Monday morning on December 22nd, 2025, during a regular security check, correctional officers at the Dekalb County Jail noticed 3 inmates were missing. Dekalb County Sheriff Melody Maddox didn't have many details concerning the absent prisoners, but set out on a mission to find them. The Dekalb 3 consisted of Stevenson Charles, Noad Yohannes, and Yusef Minor. The inmates had already faced serious charges. Charles, 24, a hardened criminal who's had many run-ins with the law in Georgia and Florida. Charles carjacked, kidnapped, and robbed 5 victims in Miami, Florida. From October 23rd to November 6th of 2022, Charles would target LGBTQ men on Grindr and social networking apps for gay and bisexual people. He met a man in October 2022 online and invited him to his Miami home for sex. When the man arrived, Charles drew a gun on him. Charles forced his victim to drive to 2 ATM machines and had him withdraw over $1,000 and give it to him. The next month, Charles invited a man he met on Grindr to a Miami location for sex. The victim arrived and Charles pulled a gun on him and demanded his cellular telephone. After looking through the victim's phone, seeing him pictured with other men, he threatened to murder every person like him. Charles made the victim drive to various drugstores and used his card to make purchases. In November 2022, Charles met another man on Grindr and set a date to meet in Dania Beach for sex. Charles pulled a gun on the man and told him that he hated LGBTQ people and believed they should be punished. Charles forced his victim to drive back to his house where he lived with another couple. He pulled the gun on the couple and forced them all into the victim's car. He then instructed the victim to drive to several ATMs where he forced the couple and the victim to withdraw money from their bank accounts in the sum of $1,500, which Charles relieved them of. Charles had the victim drive them all back to their Ventura home. Charles stole all their phones. He then left with the victim he met on Grindr, forcing him to drive back to Dania Beach. As they entered a dark and secluded area with railroad tracks, Charles shot the victim several times, including in the shoulder, back, and in the head. However, despite his injuries, the victim dialed 911 and survived the brutal attack. Charles was arrested in Georgia. He was indicted on 17 counts, including brandishing and discharging a firearm and furtherance of a crime of violence, 5 counts of kidnapping, and 4 counts of bank robbery in South Florida. Charles pleaded guilty without a plea agreement. Charles was sentenced to a life sentence in federal court for the carjackings, kidnappings, and robbery. In December 2024, a Gwinnett County DA office press release revealed that in November 2022, an assault against a man and his husband, Charles pleaded guilty to false imprisonment, aggravated sodomy, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of armed robbery, 2 counts of aggravated assault after connecting with the couple on the dating app Scruff. The account details Charles forcing a sexual act on the victim at gunpoint and robbing him. He then made the victim drive to his home, where he robbed the couple of their wedding rings and forced them to purchase gift cards for him. He was a federal inmate when he was transferred to Georgia state custody to await trial on charges related to a 2022 shooting death and armed robbery. Charles targeting the LGBTQ plus community definitely adds a layer of hate crime. Also, it could be a reason with him targeting the group is because he's dealing with his own internal turmoil concerning his own sexuality and the way he presents to the world. And it could be a driving force of the violence. Not completely, but it could be a component of it. Noad Yohannes, 25, was incarcerated in Dekalb County Jail on simple assault, arson, and unlawful acts of violence in a penal institution. Yusef Minor, 31, is a convicted killer. He murdered Jalisa May Carter, a 33-year-old and mother of 2. Detailed accounts investigators released stated May Carter was in line behind Minor in a Texaco gas station. Minor left his wallet behind, containing a $100 bill. Minor came back to the gas station and demanded the clerk show him the surveillance recording. Allegedly, May Carter took the $100 bill. He spotted the victim and her friend, who was also present in the Texaco gas station that night. Minor followed them back to an apartment building and opened fire. May Carter was found deceased on a back patio. Minor was charged, convicted, and sentenced to life for murder. He was presently in DeKalb County Jail facing armed robbery and gun charges. The 3 inmates escaped from DeKalb County Jail in the evening or early morning hours. Charles Minor Yohannes broke free by finding a structurally compromised section in the facility. Representatives of DeKalb County declined to elaborate on the exact manner used and location of the section in the penal facility due to fear of repeat escape attempts. The area has since been repaired. The facility is an aging building that is deteriorating. The jail is in Decatur, 10 miles east of downtown Atlanta. However, it's thought that inmates used a vent as a path to aid in their getaway. This was corroborated by employees working at the jail who heard noises in the vent.
Hey, she heard something in the vents over there by commissary. Hey, go ahead and cut your spotlight off. We don't want them running around. If we heard noises, we want them to stay where they at. Just set up the perimeter and keep eyes on the roof line.
You just heard dispatch sound from this morning, likely from around the time officers realized these men may have been missing.
Video shows the inmates escaping by using tied bed sheets to scale the wall.
This is believed to be the moment Stevenson Charles, Yusef Minor, and Noad Yohannes broke out of the DeKalb County Jail. The video shows the inmates using what appears to be bed sheets tied together to escape. Once the trio climbed down, the sheriff's office says Christopher Thompson was there waiting in a car.
After law enforcement discovered the escape, investigators probing the case listened to recorded phone calls the facility keeps on file. Law enforcement learned that one of the inmates contacted people outside. The individuals assisted the inmates in evading capture after the escape, stated U.S. Marshal Thomas Brown. A man later identified as Christopher Thomas picked up the DeKalb 3 dropping them off at Yusef Minor's girlfriend's, Melania Watley's house, where she ordered the 3 escapees a Lyft rideshare to drive them to Miami, Florida. The rideshare driver arrived for the fare. The driver expected a female passenger due to the ride being booked on a woman's account. Instead, she encountered 3 males. She stated she felt uneasy, but proceeded with the ride. Now, there is no victim blaming or shaming on our platform, on our channel, but I do want to make a point. And that point is, it is okay to follow your gut, your intuition. I want you to be okay with trusting it. If you are in a situation and it doesn't feel comfortable, something just feels off, exit. There is a good chance that something is wrong. At times, I think we talk ourselves down when we feel uneasy, as though we are exaggerating the moment or we don't want to be rude or offend. When it comes to your safety, do not feel guilty for being safe. Everyone is responsible for their own feelings. Once she arrived at the destination, she unlocked the door for the 3 to exit. But to her horror, she was attacked and kidnapped. The victim had a rope wrapped around her neck from behind by one of the inmates. They bound her hands together with her wrist and dragged her into the back seat, where she was kept for 6 to 10 hours. She was told to keep her eyes closed and heads down. She was then told not to put up a fight. The inmates forced the victim to allow access to her bank accounts, where they forced her to make several purchases at different businesses in Miami-Dade and Broward counties. They also forced her to change a short-term rental residence in Broward County. The victim, in a brave attempt to escape with her life, she was quickly stopped by the inmates. She was physically assaulted and her life was threatened. The victim was taken to the rental property and not permitted to leave. After 18 long, grueling hours into the kidnapping, the victim's car was spotted with Charles driving and Yohannes also inside. Law enforcement trying to disable the vehicle caused Charles to jump out and run while the car was still moving. Charles engaged law enforcement into a foot pursuit through a construction site. Charles tossed a semi-automatic handgun during the foot chase, but law enforcement was able to recover it. On December 23, 2025, shortly after midnight, Charles, Yohannes, and Mino were all apprehended by U.S. Marshals Services working jointly with local law enforcement in South Florida in the Miami metropolitan area. The Lyft rideshare driver was rescued after being captive for 18 hours. She was extremely shaken and traumatized by the ordeal. All 3 inmates were charged with kidnapping and faced federal charges. On February 27, 2026, a jury convicted Charles of kidnapping, conspiracy to kidnap, Hobbs Act robbery. Now, just in case you may not know what that is, I'm going to tell you what Hobbs Act robbery is. It's a federal crime involving the unlawful taking of personal property from a person or in their presence against their will by using actual or threatened force, violence, or fear, which obstructs or affects interstate commerce. It often targets businesses, for example, convenience stores, or robberies of goods, traveling in commerce, and possessions of a firearm and ammunition by a convicted felon. Sentencing hasn't occurred yet for Charles, but he is facing a total of 20 years for various counts. Charles also faces a mandatory 15 years minimum for the felon in possession count if he is determined to qualify as an armed career criminal under the Armed Career Criminal Act, or ACCA. Charles waived a jury trial, opting for a bench trial for the felon in possession count. Yohannes and Mino are scheduled to stand trial on kidnapping charges on March 30th. I'll do a follow-up and update on the community post after the trials and possible convictions and sentencings have concluded. The girlfriend of Yohannes, Melena Watley, faces 3 felony escape-related charges. She was arrested and charged on December 23, 2025, and was booked into the Dekalb County Jail and released on December 29th. Watley faces 3 felony counts of aiding or permitting another to escape lawful custody or confinement. The Dekalb 3 spent time at her home and used her phone in addition to her ordering the ride share. Now, Christopher Thomas, the person that actually picked them up from the jail, has also been charged. He is facing aiding and abetting an escape from a penal system. If you or someone you know is affected by LGBTQ plus related hate crimes, please seek support through trusted organizations and hotlines. I did provide a few for you, the top 4. That information is within the video, and I will also link it in the description. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any upcoming uploads. Until then, take care of yourself and each other.